All right, this is The Script, a podcast for screenwriters, by screenwriters, all story, all the time. The deepest story analysis on the internet, anywhere. Live from Adorama in New York City. Tonight, Quentin Tarantino's 8th film, if you count certain way, The Hateful Eight.
Yay.
I'm David Negrin, host of The Script. Our screenwriters tonight are Logan Kane.
Hello.
Jeremy Engdahl Johnson.
Happy to be here times 8.
And Christina Leith Malin.
Yo.
Welcome, everyone. So, Tarantino, the screenwriter, right? The Duke of Dialogue, the Master of the Monologue. We picked Hateful Eight because as screenwriters, we love a guy who cares about the writing. And no matter what he's guilty of tonight in the film, at least he cares about the writing.
Yeah, he cares, and this was kind of feels like his tortured child in a lot of ways. I mean, the script got leaked, and he was up in arms, and he was not going to make the movie, and then he kind of, finally they put on a live reading.
He canceled the movie,
He
right?
canceled the movie, and then he did like a live reading, and he was like, "Oh, but I love this script, I have to do it." And we kind of all knew that was going to happen, right? But then apparently, like, when he was finishing the script, they had they wouldn't send copies to people. Like, you had to go to a room like in the Weinstein castle, and they would present you with a copy, and you would read it, and then they would take it away. I mean, it was
They've done that before with really special scripts. No, Christopher Nolan's known for that, but no, when it got leaked, part of Tarantino's shtick is his scenarios, and
Right.
if you know the plots and you get the scenarios, some of the surprise is lost on you, and that's one of the things he's great at. And it is good for only one read or one watch in a certain way because of all the surprise that's involved, all the suspense.
a shock factor in some ways.
Shock factor.
Amaze factor.
Plenty of shock factors still in the Hateful Eight, though, I would say.
Say
What
it
do you
again?
mean?
I'd say even though the script leaked to begin with, I chose not to read it just so that I could have that experience at the cinema.
Yeah.
And I felt like
Right on.
there was still plenty of that tension and a lot of that shock, especially for the gore factor there.
Yeah, I mean, I like to always throw out a couple of ideas for us to have these conversations in context of talking about Tarantino. When we talk about Tarantino, obviously I already talked about we need to look for the dialogue. We want to rate him against himself in terms of his dialogue. Tarantino's also a master of creating tension in a scene. He builds these scenarios for conflict to have them built in, and we want to rate him against himself again and other filmmakers on how he did there. He's really amazing. He's one of these screenwriters who does a great job of creating a gap in our expectations, really surprising an audience with his reveals. I want to talk about that. And then, one of his weaknesses, I think, in past is stringing together his scenarios.
He has no weaknesses.
He has
What?
no weaknesses? All right.
No.
We know where he comes down. I think some of his weaknesses in his feature films are stringing together his scenarios into a feature that is contiguous and feels like one film, because he is making feature films. He is not releasing these as serial episodes of a TV.
Well, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of the specifics of the screenwriting, but one of the most egregious uses of voiceover ever to get yourself out of a hole. It was amazing.
In this film tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reveal. It's not a reveal. I don't want to confuse people, but basically explaining the dang poison, and what was going on. I was like, are you kidding me? Where did this?
Did he need to get? Okay, so we're jumping ahead. We're jumping ahead. But
I'm just saying the seams aren't typically that exposed. So he's brilliant for all those reasons that you say, and then he does this thing that I think a beginning screenwriter would do to get himself out of a pickle.
No. I don't think
I
there was
disagree.
I didn't see a pickle. I thought it was style. I thought it was
I
total
totally agree.
stylized.
And
it was
homage.
because it was right in the
totally
middle
agree.
of the film, and it was a chapter break, and he could have done it with film. He could have done it with. Oh, we should have this debate about voiceover, but he could have done it with with visual imagery. But
Yeah,
it was fun to hear his voice come out in the middle of the film.
The voice of God coming,
And he was kind of stylizing his own voice too, but that was interesting. Let's just do the quick one up, one down on the film. Your favorite
We've
moment.
gone from 3 up, 3 down to 2 up, 2 down. Now we're
Let's
like,
do 8 up and 8 down.
I can.
Sure. Like the whole entire podcast, we'll just do our 8 ups and 8 downs, one
And
at a
that's the
time,
podcast.
and bore the hell out of our audience. Yeah. Okay.
About 0.8.
But we start with 1 up, 1 down. We're gonna get in plenty after this. So,
Only one? I can't start
Christina,
if I can't.
you can give
I
us
can't.
2 since you were here the earliest.
Oh, touche. Okay, so I loved it. I loved it. My 2 ups and my 2 downs. I'm gonna start downs. I hate
But we start with ups in the collection.
we
I
do.
know.
You're right.
You have to see
Okay,
what you
so
like first.
there aren't really downs for me, but I liked 70 millimeter. I loved how beautiful the opening scene was.
So you
and
saw
I
it in
loved
70?
Yeah, I did. And
Oh, wow.
and I love an overture and an intermission. I feel like our attention spans are too short, and I love bringing back 2 hour plus. I love reintroducing to a younger generation overtures for a lot of westerns. That's happened, and I love intermissions. Just saddle in. Don't have too much soda in the first act or the first half.
I love that too. I just wish he'd given us a western.
Oh, I know where you're going. Okay, a second up. I loved, and it's gonna probably work its way into my downs, but I loved 2 females that were strong. Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, she was strong
She's
from the
fantastic
get-go.
in this film. You've never seen Jennifer Jason Leigh.
I've never seen her so ugly, so beautiful ugly, and so just kind of like body and in your face. Also, Minnie. I like the fact that it was a black woman that owned her own little place out in the middle of nowhere. And black people owning pseudo in the Western days, a black woman owning, you wouldn't really put that into any type of script that I know of. So I love that. My 2 downs, that there just wasn't a 4-hour version of this. And I don't like the use. I love Quentin Tarantino. He does it all the time, but I hate the N-word in any form of media. I just the reiteration of it vocally in any content. I don't like it. I know why it's there.
It's a signature.
It's in a lot of his
his.
stuff,
Yeah.
exactly. And 1 down. Well, that's my 2 down, that it wasn't 4 hours and the N-word was
Okay.
used.
Great.
Boom.
Good enough. Logan.
1 up then. 1 up, 1 down. I'm gonna go with my up as the music. I thought the music was great. I thought it kind of made the movie because I really wasn't that excited about the dialogue or the classic stuff that I always associate with Tarantino. I didn't really get all of that from this movie, at least personally. And also, I did also like the 70 millimeter roadshow exhibition. I thought that was my first time ever experiencing something like that. And I loved that there was the intermission because I don't think I've ever been able to just get up in the middle of a movie and use the bathroom. Sometimes you just get to that point and you feel like you're going to explode and you just have to endure.
How long was your guys' intermission?
It was like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say 10 minutes.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was standard.
So, yeah, there's my 1 up, 1 down.
Wait, what was your down?
The down, I just didn't feel like it was that great of a Tarantino movie. He's known for dialogue, and I thought that it was really lacking the kind of tension building and keeping it interesting, even if it's just mundane, nonsense type talk. I thought it was just a whole lot of exposition that came to fruition at the very end of the movie, but really just drew out that first half of the movie.
There's a really high bar for dialogue if it's going to be 2 hours of your film. If it's going to be so much meat, it's got to be interesting characterization. It's got to be the word choice, the lyricality of it. And Tarantino has done it in the past. But I kind of agree with you. He not as much tonight.
Yeah, he's typically had, I think, more room too to this is a very confined space, which it's kind of beginning of my ups. I like the angles that the character, the ways that these people are at odds, even though they are just meeting. It's really an intricate web that he creates, and I thought that worked really well. And to put them in this little tiny spot, this Minnie's haberdashery, which is just a wonderful word that needs to be used often.
Haberdashery.
Yeah, so that's all great, but I think building off of what both Logan and Christina had said, it should have been a half hour shorter. And
I said longer.
oh, really? Okay. I thought it went on and on and on, and because it's in that confined space, you really are more dependent on dialogue than you are in his other movies, where the dialogue's great, but it's like in the midst of things happening, right? Where these guys are cooped up. I mean, a change in the scene is like going to the outhouse. Like that's a big movement in this movie, and that puts the focus on the dialogue, and I don't think it was as sharp as we've seen from him previously.
Yeah. What I really liked was Daisy. I think she was great.
Love Daisy.
She was from the beginning. She's foul-mouthed. She's dirty. She's a mess. She's by
she
the
wasn't
end.
your typical ingenue.
No.
Even female villain.
No. I mean, was she a villain or was she a hero? I don't know that in this film she was just a hero. Apparently, she
call her
had
villain.
crimes.
She was pretty foul. I mean, she was incredible.
100%
I'm
villain.
excited because it looks like she's probably going to get nominated for every award. She already got nominated for a Golden Globe.
Oh, that's great
Oh,
to
did
hear.
she? Yeah.
But which scene, cutout scene, are they going to show when they're putting up the nominees? Like, there's not a scene with her on stage that is like acceptable
Not
for
obscene
families
or
viewing.
with
I
her
mean,
face full of blood.
full of blood or bloody puke, or I mean,
Even just she
In
shows
the
up,
snow,
she's a
they'll
woman
totally
with
do
a
the in the
black
snow
eye,
scene.
right? She's a woman with a black
Yep.
eye. It's like she's been beaten, like from the
Completely.
beginning. And the Hangman, Kurt Russell, in the very beginning, he's hitting her a lot, and I wasn't comfortable with it a lot.
I'm glad you're saying that.
Yeah, he was hitting her a lot, and it felt a little gratuitous.
No.
But then when she spits on Sam Jackson's letter and he hits her, that felt natural. That felt like violence that
Right
was
on.
called for by the story.
Sure.
well,
So-
I think Tarantino, it's weird, one of the things that I find fascinating about him is that he has these relationships with these actors, and they kind of get this weird typecast. So Kurt Russell is apparently kind of the guy who like hits women, because remember the
Anti-hero.
last time he was in a movie,
Death Proof.
it was Death Proof, and he
Yeah.
was he was this awful. I don't know.
Sadistic. He was sadistic. He was vile.
He
to
gets his
women.
comeuppance. I mean, it was very satisfying in that regard.
He does
but,
here too. Yeah.
so-
To me, Kurt Russell is Snake Plissken. He's
Yeah.
he's to me he's. I mean,
Oh, he's a
he's
little
not supposed to. He's a
Big Trouble in
hero,
Little China.
right? He's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah. He's
Was that mustache real, by the way?
Yes.
Anybody know?
it is.
That's
was
probably why they cast him.
pretty serious.
could
Wait,
grow.
no.
But to me, he's a hero. He's like he's Jack Burton, right? Like,
Right.
and he had some of the. I don't know if you guys seen Big Trouble in Little China,
Oh, yeah.
but he had
smart.
some of the Jack Burton feel to his voice on a couple of lines here and there.
Right.
And I loved that. And so. But overall, so my that was my strength. My weakness is, I mean, this is the same. I feel like Tarantino is in this cycle of the Emperor's New Clothes problem, where he gets a huge hit like Inglourious, and then another huge hit like Django, a modest hit like Django, and then the third time out, he's got no one to tell him his edit is too long, his film is not tight, his monologues aren't tight, some of the dialogue is fat. So he puts out the double movie. This is essentially another Kill Bill. That's what happened with Kill Bill. Hit,
I don't
and then
think it would've
Emperor,
stood on its own as
Emperor
two
has
separate.
no clothes, and he does Kill Bill.
I'm just glad I only had to go to the theater once this time. Like the Kill Bill two-part thing.
I
is
would have
just-
gone back and back and back.
I mean, we know that Tarantino writes novelistically. If you've ever read his screenplays, they read like novels, because he doesn't need to write a spec screenplay.
Well, funny you should say that, because I actually was at the screening with him present, and they did a full Q&A with the cast.
Mm-hmm.
And he had said that his jump off for this is he was writing this, and this was actually the sequel to Django.
Right, I
And-
read that too. That it was like the
And he was writing it like
further,
a novel.
The
Yep.
further adventures.
The further
of
adventures.
Django.
And he said the problem was, and this he didn't get the script right after the third draft. The second draft was the leaked draft. But at the third draft, it was like the problem was he needed to take Django out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to stay in that period. He liked Westerns. He wasn't done there with his collection of 10. But Django that story was done. And he
Yeah.
needed to move on.
Did this feel connected to Django for you guys?
I mean, I
Period-wise.
came at it from
Period. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe you could see how the Confederate general is, that character could tie in or something. But I mean, the thing, and we talk about it kind of. It's funny that he kind of was tongue in cheek about it being it's my 8th movie and there's 8 people, and he was kind of playing off the 8. Unfortunately, I feel like that went a little too far, and it just kind of felt like the 8th Quentin Tarantino movie. Like, I didn't think it was. I thought he'd reached this really original spot with Inglourious Basterds, with Django, where it was kind of these revenge history dramas that were really
very
interesting in that
different. Yeah,
regard.
But are we not
was
okay with calling
evolving.
that
He
his
was
niche?
evolving, but this does not feel like evolution. This feels like a side project. This feels like
I totally disagree. Number one, is anyone seeing any Kurosawa homage here? Any kind of Western Kurosawa, Magnificent Seven, Rashomon, Seven Samurai kind of homage playing?
Well,
here,
I think
out
he was
here?
doing. I think he was doing spaghetti western homage, right? For at least the first. I mean,
With a little bit of
especially with
whodunit,
Ennio
correct.
Morricone, right? Writing an original score. I mean, like, he had to raise Ennio from the dead to get this score, right?
Right.
But it went very far from. It strayed very quickly from the western. From the western genre in terms of story structure. I actually saw Bone Tomahawk recently. Did you guys see that? It was Kurt Russell in a western. Craig Zoller is the screenwriter and director. He had a script on the blacklist several years ago called The Brigands of Rattleborg, and Bone Tomahawk was his first film that actually got produced, and that was like a western where it felt like a western for 2/3 of the movie. They're on horseback. They're chasing people down.
Yeah.
They're meeting several obstacles, overcoming the obstacles, and then in the third act there is a confrontation, and that to me is the western.
Can we call it a cross? I feel like it was a Western / whodunit / flashback.
I'm glad you said whodunit because it turned into Clue. Didn't it
Yeah,
turn
that's
into
exactly
Clue?
what
Totally
I thought
did.
the whole second half of that movie. And one part of the Western is you get the shootout, and any shootout that happens in this movie is completely one-sided.
Yeah, well,
or almost entirely.
It's
Kinda true.
interesting because there's a few key differences from the leaked version that we actually did a workshop on a year ago or more. Sometimes we look at proscripts, and there was much more of a shootout in the leaked version. Channing Tatum's character gets a little bit more respect. He actually gets some shots off.
Okay.
So there's more like kind of a bloodbath at the end.
Yeah.
But that's he apparently didn't like that and wanted to kind of string it out a little bit further. So
All I know is that the trouble with a shootout is you can't have so much coincidence unless it's funny. I mean, the whole thing with Mannix passes out and then he wakes up just in time. It felt really weak for me. It reminded me a lot of the shootout from at the end of Django, where it's just like, who gets it first? It's just like, all right, Quentin, what's the order you're gonna kill people off in? It doesn't matter, you're gonna kill everybody, but what's the
You're living for Ellery
what's the
Queen,
order, and
stop
who's
it.
gonna be left?
Agatha Christie.
Thank goodness he hung Daisy. It was the one piece of originality in the finale.
and that was new. That was not in the leaked script. They had a
Yeah.
shootout, and Mannix was the only one left. That's what happened in the leaked one. So he changed that. But
Interesting.
I liked the coincidences. I liked the way it kind of strung out, and you figure out who was who. I didn't even mind the clue element. It just I guess I appreciated the ending because it descended into absurdity. Like the Lincoln letter is like a counterfeit, and they're just sitting there like reading it to each other as if it's profound.
Well, I wanted to hear the letter the whole time. Didn't
Yeah.
you?
Oh,
Didn't
yeah.
you want to hear the whole thing?
It's the
That was
MacGuffin
great.
that we actually get.
yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Let's talk character, guys. Strongest character from our film. I'll start with Jeremy. We'll go backwards. Strongest character, because this is 8 characters. This thing is a character piece. So, who worked, who didn't?
I thought Daisy was great. You
Yeah.
know, it's this whole thing is kind of this universe is orbiting around her, and we don't even really realize that for a good part of the movie.
Yeah. Because we don't have a straight protagonist here, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit of an ensemble.
Yeah, I think Mannix
Completely.
is a great character, and it's kind of it's interesting. We never really figure out what his deal is. We don't know if he's actually the sheriff of Red Rock. Like that could have all just been bullshit the whole time.
That was another problem I had. We never got to Red Rock. I thought that was going to be the third act of the movie, and it would be like that spot
like that
in
we
Reservoir Dogs, and we get a bunch of vampires, Salma Hayek dancing and vampires biting. Like,
But
that's what I wanted.
All the other characters, we knew who they were, at least.
Yeah.
Like we were sure of their identities. And Mannix is interesting because he's, on the one hand, he's the son of this famous marauder, but on the other, he may not be there for. We have no reason to trust him. So, and yet he becomes kind of the center of the whole thing.
And Mannix is the one character who kind of arcs, right? He starts out, or we, at least in our minds, we start out hating him because he's like this racist, and he's like such a he's so loyal to the Confederacy. He's like worshiping.
He has the best arc.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And by the end, he's marveling at at the counterfeit Lincoln letter.
Yeah,
he's come a long way, and he's got his black buddy there.
He and Sam Jackson are executing justice together
as they slowly both die. It was,
which was
Spoiler
very
alert.
reminiscent. A lot of bleed outs in this one. A lot of returns to Reservoir Dogs, right?
Right on.
Right? Doesn't Mr. Orange bleed out in this one too?
Yeah, that's
Right?
Oh,
Doesn't
Tim
he?
Roth. Wait, is that Tim
I
Roth?
Yeah, Tim Roth.
Tim
Yeah.
Roth can't catch a break.
Yeah, it bleeds out again.
yeah,
He's good at bleeding out.
that's his typecast.
Logan.
Logan's other characters that worked or didn't work.
I would say that, Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, Domagay, I really liked her as an actress. The character, sure, I think that was a very believable character, and she really fit into the story well. I would say that I much liked, Kurt Russell's character, the Hangman, just because he seemed so authentic in that role, and the whole time he's got a clear goal. He wants to get her alive to Red Rock and get that $10,000. Whereas Sam Jackson's kind of like questionable. He wants that $8,000, but like the whole time he's kind of like playing detective. And then Maddox, like you said, you don't really know. He's kind of a wild card. I thought that was really strange that they kind of put the fate of the end of the story in his hands, whether he was going to take her bribe or not. So that was kind of strange, especially when Samuel L. Jackson was credited as the lead in the story, but he's totally like basically useless at the end of the movie. He's like lying on a bed with no genitalia, and so I would say Russell Crowe is my favorite character of the movie.
Kurt Russell.
Russell
Crowe.
I love him too. That cameo was amazing.
Kurt Schilling, Russell Crowe.
The
one character who
Javert showed up.
Javert showed up. The Joe Gage character, the Michael Madsen character, like that was the.
Did you like him?
He was I think the worst character.
He was the weak link.
There was kind of nothing about him other than the fact that he's the
we
guy
needed
who
an eighth.
plants the poison.
We needed an eighth.
The rumor, and I don't quote this as news. I don't follow up on these rumors, but I think they thought at one point it was Michael Madsen's agent who leaked the script, and I think he originally had the Kurt Russell role, at least in the initial talk about the casting. So I'm wondering if he got booted down to Joe Gage, in response to
they were
allowing
joking
the leak
about
to
that
happen.
on Jimmy Kimmel because they had the whole cast, and they were joking between Madsen and Russell being the only two people that got that script.
I thought it was Bruce Dern.
Yeah, I heard it was Dern.
I thought it was
Really?
Dern.
It's weird, yeah.
Himself. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Maybe
it was
that was
Dern.
part of
He was
the
like a
marketing.
newcomer into the
I don't know.
Tarantino alumni, and I
but he's not
vaguely remember a story about being either his agent or an agent's assistant or something that might have done it.
Yeah.
Well, they're all in the movie, so he can't have been that mad about it.
But Gage is a weak link. We don't know what is his special power. What is his gift?
He was a mama's boy at the beginning.
Yeah, he's writing his own autobiography,
which is ridiculous.
But I
It
didn't
was a
buy
great
that
start.
at all.
I mean, the guy in the corner writing his autobiography, that's hilarious.
That is
and
hilarious.
going to visit his mom, like it started off great. It's just like he if he'd been more of a kind of a bloodthirsty killer, it would have been funnier, I guess.
So, Mannix is very strong because he arcs. He becomes likable after we think he's like a racist and a weakling. Kurt Russell, I think, very strong because he's the closest thing when we talk about structure. He is kind of our protagonist in the beginning. He's on a journey. He's got a very simple A story. He's got to deliver Daisy to Red Rock, and then he keeps running into people on the at the inn that's snowed in, right?
He's kind of a tragic hero. I mean, he charges right into it. He creates the whole situation.
Yes, and I think when he gets his by the hand of Daisy, I think it actually made some of his gratuitous beating of her make sense to me. Not justified, but made story sense. That he gets his comeuppance, like this disgusting, like poisonous, like
that was
vomit of blood.
But I think we're saying this because we live in 2016. That's
blood
probably
vomit.
the standard in that world.
Blood vomit, and then your hand cut off. Right? We're getting into horror territory here.
No, but that's the standard in that world. We're thinking the way we're thinking, where we have hummus and all these organic things. But in that world, you would cut an arm off. It is that brutal. So it's kind of like standard, apropos of their world.
I like
Still
that
the
the
Wild
poll has been
Yeah.
set between hummus and having your hand cut off. Like
I didn't get
this
the
is
hummus
the difference between
point.
civilized.
We eat hummus and they poison each other. That's okay. Like,
I just thought, that was the death by blood vomiting is probably the worst Tarantino death that I've seen that I can think of in a long time.
It totally reminded me of Evil Dead. Like, for the rest of that time when she has blood on her face, I was like, this
Silent
is so
tears.
much
she
like
looked
Evil
great.
Dead.
She looked great.
She did, yeah.
He was invoking Carrie too. I mean, covered in
yeah,
blood. I mean,
yeah.
it was there was lots of homage going on.
I mean, one thing we should always the cinematography in this film, the imagery,
So beautiful.
Tarantino is a genius. I forgot to mention the artist earlier tonight. Quentin Tarantino, written, directed.
Yep.
Cinematographer was Robert Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert Richardson and Quentin working on imagery, beautiful stuff. It's just
Long, beautiful
it's just not.
shots.
Yeah, some of those shots are great in the beginning when your audience has the attention span for it. But then later on, when
It's
the
not even
dialogue
about
goes
having
on,
attention span. It's what I want my daughter to see this film at 1-8 when she gets old enough. Just because
you
it's
can
beautiful.
show her the
You
first
don't
10
need,
minutes.
It's a combination of getting everything. I think a writer or a director would come with having this kind of sensibility. You have these big, sweeping visual scenes that go on. It isn't like a quick shot of the wilderness. They're long, sweeping shots, and then you go into this interior. There's like a stage play that is a death trap or a clue where we really get to chew on dialogue, and you don't have like a whole bunch of bells and whistles. Chuck Bronson isn't jumping out with a 44. It's like a real story, and I dug it 100%. And I also saw
But
the
until
Hollywood
they hit the
Reporter,
cabin,
he wants
but-
to do that on stage now. He
What?
would love to bring Hateful Eight to stage.
He wants to bring what to the stage?
Hateful Eight.
Why?
His
This
next
is
step,
not
he
a
said,
play.
would be like.
Well, it's a play
it
once
would
they get to
totally
the
be a
cabin.
great
He was going to
play.
publish it as a novel after it got
Exactly.
leaked. So he thinks it's all
Wow.
kinds of things.
I think it's
I
a video
think
game.
it's-
I think I
think
can
it's
play
an
it.
I would
Oh,
a video
yeah.
game. I would see it on Broadway.
It's a western
love it.
until they get to the Haberdashery, and then it's a.
Does it have to have a genre?
It's a
You talked about
contained
multiple
thriller.
genres.
Then it's a contained thriller. I'm just saying what it
It's a lot
lends
like,
itself.
Okay.
From Dusk Till Dawn was exactly the same way. I mean, first
Right.
half of the movie totally different from second half.
Right,
Of the
it's
movie.
a
That's not
road
comp you
movie.
want. That's not a comp you want.
You
the
didn't like
second
Dusk Till Dawn?
Well, I like the second half better than I like the first half. In this film, I think I like the first half better than the second. And then I like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, I like the web. I mean, it was funny. I saw somebody leaving maybe with a half hour to go, and I was like, man, I don't think that's the right move. And can you imagine sitting
I
through this
mean,
whole
come on.
thing and not seeing the
You don't
ending?
think
It's like-
Tarantino's going to give it to you in the end?
Yeah,
There's one
he's
thing he's going to
totally-
do is give it to you.
I was
in the
like,
end.
there's going to be payoff.
All right, guys, we're going to move forward to our structure section. We're going to do, what's that?
Do we have like special rules for Tarantino movie structure
It is
discussions?
not a typical structure.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. It's 3-act structure. If
Is it really?
You can try it. We're trying to fit it into Blake Snyder.
All right.
Try to figure out if there was a protagonist. I think there's obvious protagonist handoff, right, between Kurt Russell and Sam Jackson, but they are the two leads.
Yeah.
For most of the film, and when Kurt's the lead, after Kurt dies, Sam takes over. In a way, you might tell another screenwriter to combine their characters, right?
But you needed to have 8.
Oh, shit. Really?
And who was the guy who died? The other guy who died of blood poisoning?
Oh,
Like-
that was
Obi.
that's where the
Bo.
math got a little
Bo.
weird.
Yeah.
He's not one of the 8. You know, the
He's not.
Stagecoach the stagecoach driver is
guy.
not.
He
one
was
of the-
really
He didn't have
entertaining.
enough hate. He didn't hate
but,
anybody.
But he wouldn't.
He just
didn't
hated the
hate
door.
Him. He just died.
Wait, can I give 2 shout-outs right now?
Yeah.
I kept looking throughout this whole movie for Lee Horsley because I remember Matt Houston, and I was just like, oh my God, he's bringing him back. So that's a shout-out to Lee Horsley.
And which guy is that?
He plays Ed. He had such a small role. He was one of the stage kids. And also, I don't know why Three Guys hasn't brought up the blowjob scene. Or
We were getting there, right? Pretty sure.
The blowjob scene.
What did you
Let-
want
let's-
to? What did you want to
the
talk
monologue.
about?
Let's-
We always give Sam Jackson a monologue
What specifically do you want us to bring
that
up?
I thought was phenomenal.
So
was-
that was very reminiscent of the Sicilian
The
monologue
Royale?
in
Oh,
True Romance.
oh,
Well, I was
I didn't
thinking
think of
True
that.
Romance,
Oh, I
That is
forgot
where-
about that.
totally-
where
Sicilians, the N words raped your blonde
right
Italians.
where okay so
Hopper.
Right, so Dennis Hopper is trying to get the mafia boss,
Christopher Walken.
played by Christopher Walken, to kill him because he knows he's dead, but he doesn't want to be tortured.
Yep.
And he tells him the story about how the what is it, the southern
Italians.
Southern
went from blondes
Italians,
to brunettes.
right, how they got dark because they made it with
women.
the Moors, right?
Mhm,
Right. So
mhm.
that, and he was trying to get him to kill him. So it reminded me a lot of that. And that was a Quentin Tarantino script, not directed, but that's what it reminded me of. The blowjob monologue.
My question is, do you guys believe it, or do you think it was purposely ambiguous or true?
I mean, the Marquise, he was lying all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about truth is such a gray area with this
It doesn't
film.
matter, because somebody said it. He's just trying to get you to shoot him.
Yeah, and it's one of the conceits of this movie is that it's the same thing with Mannix, where you don't really know where you stand with anybody, or if anything is real,
Yeah,
or what
true.
anyone's actual intentions are. So you just know everyone's probably lying.
We did get some imagery of it, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
At the same
Out of
time, Sam
focus,
Jackson.
It was
Sam
a classic. I mean,
Sam
that's
Jackson's like, you can picture.
Oh
you
yeah,
can see
putting pictures
now.
in your head.
It's
yeah.
like a
Yeah,
30
yeah.
million hit YouTube item, though. I mean, that
Is it
speech.
really?
Like, no, it will be. Like,
Oh.
it's.
Is that the best mono in the script? I mean, it
feel.
stands out.
I mean,
the best
like,
pieces of dialogue.
I would say so.
my
Content-wise.
favorite dialogue was when they were kind of clowning themselves. Like I love it when they get all misty eyed at the end about what would the hangman do, when it's like the hangman would hang her, and they're like spouting back this total bullshit philosophy from earlier in the movie, and I thought that was very well done. It was like a joke he set up early. He pulled it off, and it was
He reads the letter,
yeah,
and he says that was a nice touch,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because he knows he's full of
It's
it.
like so it's like we just descended into utter absurdity at the end, and I thought that's where I'm so glad I stayed for the end of the movie.
So let's do structure, guys. I mean, if you guys, I'm gonna try to bring us through 3 acts. I mean, it's a 6-chapter scenario. The thing does have an intermission, right? That's a very clear midpoint. It does work in chapters. For me, I mean, anyone have an opening image and closing image they want to talk about?
It's the mountains, right?
It's
Big
that
I was
sweep.
gonna say
pull,
technical
that
opening
pullback from
image
Jesus,
or the
the Jesus
overture,
Christ
which kind of
statue.
sets the
Yes.
That was a
Yeah, the Christ
Okay.
figure.
Which
the
they
snowy
use-
Christ figure.
They use well to show the change in time. Like they use that later when they show us kind of what happened the day before.
Mhm. And what's our closing thematic image to match that? I mean, she's hanging.
Yeah, you've got her hanging with
stays
an arm
inside.
attached
I
to
think
her.
you got her hanging in kind of a Christ-like fashion.
Oh, I don't want.
Yeah.
Oh, she's hanging.
I thought you were the horror queen.
I am.
You're
I
the queen.
it's religious imagery I don't play with so
Ah,
much.
Okay. So that's closest. That's pretty
Okay.
decent opening image, closing image. Theme stated. Anybody have a theme stated from Hateful Eight?
You go ahead.
I think it's where he says like, where Kurt Russell says, nobody said it was gonna be an easy job, and Sam Jackson said, well, nobody said it had to be this hard either.
I like
Oh,
that.
That's a great
that's
line.
Nice.
I thought that was a great
I
line.
dig
And they
that.
spoof that later too.
Yeah,
Really?
they bring it back.
Yeah.
Right. What does Daisy
to
say
rewatch
when she
this.
finds out the letter is a lie? She's really excited. She
Said
thought
like
it
you
was
talk that sass or
talk
something.
that sass,
it's
right?
pretty
Talk
funny.
that sass. I thought that was hysterical. It was really thematic for me for Sam Jackson's character. It's like, you are full of it. You're a bounty hunter, right? You kill people. We don't, we found out that he maybe burned down this cabin to escape at one point. Didn't care if it was Confederates or Union guys. He's just a survivor. And he says whatever he needs. He talks that sass. He says whatever he needs to get out of the situation.
Plus, he got a blowjob in the wilderness from a racist
that
general's
bad?
son. I mean, I whether it's true or not, like, I mean, obviously, I hope it is because that's amazing.
There were some great throwbacks to Pulp Fiction in this, and I thought the sexual scenario he describes there was a bit of a great throwback to Pulp Fiction.
It'll be a thing the same way that the bring out the GIMP is a thing. It'll just kind of be, shorthand for crazy Tarantino sex.
I thought that was strong. There's another great. There's another, like I was saying, there's a lot of Reservoir Dogs imagery with the shooting and the bleeding out. I had another great one for Pulp Fiction, but so theme stated, it's hard to get a feel on it. But if we were gonna just try to put it into words, I like the one you came up with there. This job, it's a hard job, or it's a hard life. In the West, it shouldn't be this hard. And you've got to lie to make your way through it.
When you're talking about imagery, I just realized, I don't want to say Amanda Plummer. Her name is Amanda something. That whole Honey Bunny scene when they're doing the shootout, I felt
definitely
like
Amanda
she was Mannix. Like, I don't know what to do because they had the guns. Do you remember, like, in the restaurant when
That's
they had
right.
guns and they were like, who do we kill? Who do we kill? Everyone keep cool. That felt like very much the end when it was Sam Jackson and Mannix.
Yeah. I mean, and the shootout. There's always a Mexican standoff in a
What?
Tarantino film. Always. Right?
I take no
that
part
was
of
one other
comment.
change from the leak script is he wasn't Mexican Bob, he was French Bob.
Oh.
Really?
So they gave Channing Tatum all the French, I guess.
Was that supposed to be a French accent?
He was just, I love that they
I
blew him
don't
away
even
so
get
quickly.
it.
He was just intolerable. He's like the mastermind, and then it's just like, let's just blow up his head. Like,
I heard
2
James
seconds.
Remar was the first to read for that role,
Oh,
and I
really?
would have loved to have seen James Remar. He played the father in Dexter, if any of you have seen that.
Yeah. He's
And he
good. He's
totally is
good.
kind of like the Kurt Russell almost. Like,
He
you
would
could totally
be
see him with a
a
giant
really good
mustache
fit.
and doing all of that. I really don't like that Channing Tatum is now one of the Tarantino alumni.
I don't really think
Like,
he is. I
put
think
his
that
name
was
in
just
that
the
club in
one-off.
an article I read, and I was like,
Really?
if I have to see him in more, like the last 2 Tarantino movies or something, I don't know. I think he was miscast in this.
Well, you know what? Give him time
Quentin
because
Tarantino is give him
I don't
time to
know.
what? Give
Well,
Channing Tatum time.
I'm not gonna get beat up over that comment. What I'm saying is, do you remember like we used to laugh at like Clooney and how like corny he was back in the 80s, and he salt and peppered out. He learned how to act, and
I think
give him time.
Clooney always had a bit
Clooney
of
was
acting
corny.
ability. Channing Tatum, if he's not dancing or being a fool,
Oy
doesn't have any range. And Tarantino is normally extremely good at casting, right? He's known for bringing great actors out of obscurity, right? And
having male muses, because a lot of people have female muses. Like Woody Allen had his Mia Farrow or Diane Keaton. He has a lot of male muses.
Well, he brought Kurt Russell out. He's bringing Bruce Dern out because Bruce Dern had
Sam Jackson's
had the Nebraska hit. So
I love Bruce Dern.
let me run us through some plot points, guys. The setup is taken care of actually in the storytelling, like in the back story, right? Because this thing starts off very quickly with Major Marquis meets John Ruth the Hangman. They're both bounty hunters. They're both headed to Red Rock, and the Hangman's bringing Daisy and Major Marquis bringing
3 dead bodies,
right? And that is, can I come with you? And then Ruth says, no, I can't let you in. And they debate their interest in the bounties. They debate the identity of Daisy. So there's debate right there. Similar to the debate when they pick up Maddox, they basically do it twice.
Yeah.
The same plot point, which is, anyway. So basically the break into 2 for me was Ruth allowing Marquis to ride with him. And now we're on a journey. We didn't get any of their backstory until we get in the stagecoach.
Sure.
But we get that through through exposition and in the Tarantino-esque dialogue.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
I thought that's
Totally.
that was kind of our jump-off point.
Yeah. So right up until this point, we still got your classic structure going on, right? If there's a B story, it really, I think, is Daisy, right? Daisy and the Hangman, Daisy and
her gang.
the gang.
Mm-hmm.
This whole scheme that's been built around saving her.
Yep.
Yeah, they do a great job of making us think who would be out to save her. Right, and by the end of it, that's what ties into the third act. That's what ties into the poison. That's what ties into the gang and the flashback chapter. Oh, that was the thing I liked about that was the reference to Pulp Fiction was the nonlinear storytelling. I was like, finally, it's been a long time since Quentin told us a story out of order, and he did it here to fool us, and it was. I thought that part was well executed.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where I wonder how we keep our understanding of the structure as a 3-act structure going. Cause,
that's what I was
have
gonna
to
say.
be
It's not. It doesn't feel like it.
3-act structure does not have to be chronological. It just needs to have the stakes. The conflict needs to escalate. It just has to be rising action the whole time.
So what then does the flashback represent in the structure? Is that the?
It's bad guys close in.
Okay.
It's more bad guys close in, and then when we return from it, it's our third act.
Okay.
Because the all is lost is when all the Minnie and the rest get it.
Yeah.
But again, is it fair to
And
say?
we find out that they're sorry.
No, you're
and,
fine.
And we find out once Minnie and everybody gets it, we find out that that Marquis is screwed, is because and that his balls are going to be blown off.
So then, given that, is Marky getting his balls blown off essentially the break into 3?
Yeah, it's a really it kind of is. That's when we come back, right? We get it before we come back. Not is it before the flashback or after the flashback?
It's
Before.
right before because we got to
it's
understand
before.
why there was
Died to your
somebody under the
huevos, amigo.
floorboards.
So the return
to the balls off.
the balls off. Yeah. I think it's the return
can't.
from the chapter
Wow.
breaks us into 3.
Yeah, I'm glad that we've established that. I think that's a first.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of fellatio and ball talk in this movie.
A lot of guys
A lot
and
of balling.
balls. Yeah.
But like I was gonna say, isn't it fair to say, and you've mentioned this in your workshops, that if it's a strong writer, you don't necessarily have to stick to 3-act structure. You also don't have to have standard like one protagonist, because we're calling Kurt Russell your protagonist. I feel like it was a dual protagonist. It was kind of like a white ghost and a dark ghost, because I feel like so was Samuel L. Jackson. You had the bounty hunter that kills, takes the dead bodies. You have the bounty hunter that wants them live, and kind of their journey to see what's the good path and how it all. I feel like they both, because
Two sides of the same coin.
Exactly, because they both had a good amount of plot. They both went through dealing with the gang, and I don't feel like one role was smaller than the other, because it started off with Kurt, but
So
it ended with.
You're asking 2 questions.
Yes, I am.
One, can you have multiple
structure.
protagonists? Let's start with that one.
Okay.
Well, when you have an ensemble film, something like Magnolia or Crash, you have 7 plots, you have 7 protagonists. It's like a TV series. So
But
yeah,
those
you
are
can,
multiple stories, though.
Right.
We're still dealing with.
Yes, but this is a film with multiple stories. In a lot of ways,
true.
this becomes an ensemble film, a multi-plot film.
Hmm.
Okay, even though they take place in the same room.
Good
Do
point.
you need 3-act structure? Yes, I think always. 3-act structure doesn't refer to the
But can you bend it?
the pieces of. Yes, you bend it, but then you bend it at your own peril. The thing 3-act structure does is it allows an audience to absorb the story in the most efficient manner possible. And I think the things that we're complaining about in this film, in terms of the length, and in terms of some of those chapters being longer, aren't structural problems. They're just editing problems. And I think this film is. I only got a little way through, but I think this film is 3-act structure. Fine 3-act structure. It's just really long.
Well, and if we're looking at getting on the stagecoach is really the break into 2, and getting shot in the balls is the break into 3, it's a massive second act. And I think that
Yes,
actually
that's true,
speaks to
very
why
true.
the thing is is so kind of ponderous. I mean, I thought it was ponderous in the middle.
It's ponderous because people are sitting around in a room talking. That's why it's ponderous.
I thought that whole stagecoach with when they finally are all in it and they're talking and they get the story about how Samuel Jackson actually burnt down his captors, but also the Union Army guys. I thought that was still kind of part of that Act 1, and it's really when they get to the haberdashery that's like breaking into the new world, which is in a lot of movies. I mean, it's not technically all.
Yeah, I mean, defining the end of the first act is always up to interpretation.
Yeah.
Whether the first act began when they pick up Sam Jackson, or whether they pick up Mannix, or when they get to the haberdashery. Yeah, the haberdashery does feel like a new world, but that's really late. It's really late to
like
begin your second
Chapter 3.
and we're already, when you think of the second act, Blake Snyder calls it the fun and games. When do the fun and games start? When does the promise of the premise of this Tarantino film start? It's like as soon as the stagecoach opens the doors. You're like, we're in this world. We're on this journey.
That's true.
So I mean. Where is the the fun and games for me are Chapter 1, the stagecoach information when they pick up Mannix. They talk about Daisy and the Hangman. Chapter 2, Son of a Gun, when they pick up Mannix. The story about the Renegade Army, the Confederate background to all this, the Confederacy, Marquis' backstory where he had a bounty on his head that was really high. I thought that was going to play in later.
That did actually, because that's how he said that's why the general's son went after him, is because he had $5,000 on his head and he was going there for fortune.
I thought that's why the general's son went after him.
It took me a second viewing to catch that as well. I still didn't understand why he was doing that the first time around.
He was just okay, that makes sense then. Then we get to the haberdashery, and now I think we're full in fun and games. The haberdashery starts something like 30 minutes into a 2-hour and 40-minute movie. So it's hard to say, we're definitely in Act 2, but we haven't approached the midpoint yet. The midpoint, in terms of intermission, is when?
That would be right after he shoots the general. He gives him that long story about the sun and walking him in the snow to death,
Stern.
all that, and then he shoots him.
Yep.
And I think it's right when Mexican Joe closes the piano.
And that's when we come back and that's when we get the voiceover, right?
So and there's a nice arc there too. If the midpoint is the blowjob and then they break into 3, it's him getting his balls shut off.
Wow.
It revolves around Sam Jackson's.
He thought about this more than we are giving him credit for.
That is great.
Brilliance.
That's
great bookends. Blowjob and castration.
And as far as the fun and games, I mean, I thought the whole thing.
This is a feminist film.
Yeah, very much so. The whole thing with the door and and everybody's the slapstick, like you gotta kick it open, you gotta
that
take
was
2 boards.
funny.
But
hilarious.
it was so Tarantino because you're like, why does that door not work? And it's kind of bugging you the whole time, and you're gonna find out at some point why the door doesn't work.
No, there is such great. Tarantino loves to put mundane things in the middle of huge stakes, right? Like it reminded me, making the coffee in the beginning, like this coffee is shit. They had to make the coffee, and they spend a couple of scenes where he's trying to find the coffee beans and get the water, and where's their well. And then in it reminded me in Pulp Fiction of the of the sheets. Remember when they've got to dress the car.
Right.
So making coffee for Harvey and
getting Harvey coffee. Oh, this is the good stuff, right? He's like, right.
The coffee for
again,
coffee, possible.
Right? And then even the celluloid in Inglourious Bastards, all the dealing with the film, and then the film becomes part of the fire. Okay. I love it when he puts the little mundane things into his storytelling. That's definitely a Tarantinoism. So I think it splits up into 3 acts very well because the Minnie's haberdashery is a lot of them arrive at Minnie's. Tarantino gives us the new characters, Oswaldo, Mowbray. Mm-hmm. We get the Mannix and the coach driver go to drop the lines to the stable in the outhouse. Is that brought back ever?
No.
Is that useful at all?
But that outhouse was so far away from the haberdashery. It was like I was laughing.
That was a total homage in my mind too to The Thing. Because in the thing, they had to do the string lines to get back to the main building.
I think he acknowledged that this was
And that's Kurt
influenced
Russell.
by
the thing. Really,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Given it, Kurt Russell's in it,
Yeah.
given that it's the snow is out the whole time. Who's the thing then in the Hateful Eight?
Oh, don't go that way.
Eight.
The Eight.
Stop. No, but
Hates.
if
I
you,
think
it
it's
does
I
make
think it's
sense about
Daisy. She's like the thing.
because
She
it's
causes
going
all the
back to
problems.
the 12 Angry Men, or that like a bunch of men in a room that have to make a decision or have to come to some kind of agreements, or there has to be a verdict in the scenario. The same thing with the thing. There's an alien that can change into whoever. Everyone's seen this movie.
Right.
The
Yeah.
whole
It's
idea, and
almost
they're
like a
stuck.
whodunit as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Same scenario.
Yeah.
Right, 12 Angry Men is a how do we solve this problem, dude with a problem scenario. Yeah.
Yep.
Chapter 3 ends with the Hangman Monologue, right? No. It begins with a Hangman. It has the Hangman Monologue. The whole thing about who pulls the lever should be a dispassionate man. I like that. That was some piece of dialogue
That was
I
some
like
more
because
really
that's
good-
closer to justice.
Yeah, some really good bullshit philosophy there.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
There is no
the
such
difference
thing
between
in a Tarantino movie.
justice and frontier justice.
Right.
Right.
And so then we get the monologue where Bruce Dern ends up trying to shoot Sam, and that's our midpoint, right? Because that's when you get the intermission, and
Right.
that's when Tarantino's voiceover, it comes back. If you're going to do an intermission, you might as well, do an old school thing like
I love it.
where we left you last week.
Yeah, well, did they give like a little like after the intermission? It went right into the story. Why am I forgetting that there was any type of?
Well, where does
VO?
the
Was there
voiceover
VO?
come in?
Yeah,
Isn't
right
it
when
right-
it comes back?
Yeah,
Right
when they
after.
come back, Tarantino does a little voiceover to explain to us where we were last when we left, right?
That's so spaghetti western.
But
That's so good.
It felt serial
I
TV
loved
to
it.
me.
It's one
It
of those
felt-
Quentin Tarantino winks, like
Yeah.
to the audience.
It was a nice wink, but
Okay, here's the thing. Let's
It-
all
it
admit
certainly
we'll
makes-
agree on one thing. If you see a Tarantino, it's going to be a cult classic, and it's going to pay homage to what he remembers in his youth and his day. So, I mean, hating it, loving it, but he's not going to change. He's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to start making Christopher Nolan's
Yeah.
to make people happy.
well, the only other films I haven't seen a ton of classic westerns, and I haven't seen that many films in my lifetime that had intermissions because I guess they stopped doing it. I remember watching The Right Stuff. The Right Stuff had an intermission.
really?
Yeah, it did. And the intermission, when I watched it as a kid on HBO, was intermission, and they counted down like 10 minutes on the
Yeah.
screen with like a blue screen on a VHS.
Back when HBO gave away 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, so I appreciated sort of like the we come back, and Tarantino's telling us where we are. But then we've got Domergay's Got a Secret, the chapter, the Four Passengers flashback chapter, and then we get the finale. So to me, these chapters fit really well into 3-act structure. Chapter 1, Last Stage to Red Rock, is we've already begun our second act. Son of a Gun. Second act is all fun and games still. Minnie's Haberdashery is fun and games. Midpoint is the shootout, the blowjob shootout.
First death.
And then Bad Guys Close In is Daisy's Secret. Then the flashback.
And
And-
the
and-
poison.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. The blood vomits. And then the Four Passengers, still Bad Guys Close In. That's particularly amazing because we are introduced to new characters who are under the floor, right? Talk about Bad Guys Closing In, right? And All Is Lost for me was the Minnie. We get introduced to Minnie and her friends, and they all get shot and killed. And boom. Is there a
that
moment
really
for
All Is
Dark Knight of the
Lost?
Soul? Is there
That's-
any Dark Knight of the Soul after that?
I'm not processing why Minnie is all is lost because that's already happened when we're into the script.
Well, this is where what we were talking about before. I think with the chronology and the 3-act structure not lining up becomes confusing. But I agree, and it's actually a brilliant low point because we've been hoping, that Minnie
Is gonna come back.
Is going to come back and make some more stew. And I love the process he goes through around that is some good dialogue
Gumballs.
when he's talking about the stew. And if you knew anything about Minnie's stew, I would know that you didn't make it. But the main thing is that Minnie hates Mexicans, so that's why.
Yeah, right.
But like that whole thing was brilliant. But I liked that they managed to take something that had happened, before the movie even starts and turn it into a low point via a flashback. That's a nice use of a flashback.
it's a stylized use of a flashback. It's not a crutch. It's a choice. It's a story choice. And I'm just saying that chronologically, it's not in order.
Right.
It's story-wise and 3-act structure-wise, it's right in the right place, and it works.
Because
The stakes continue to escalate. The action continues to rise. We get whiff of death, where people are shot, and we find out, our heroes, whoever they may be, are in deeper shit than we thought they were. Then we return to the final chapter, Black Man, White Hell, and it's a shootout like you never see before.
Bleeding out by your balls.
Bleeding
Love
out in all different directions.
all men shit. No, I'm kidding.
A hanging. I thought Daisy might survive. Didn't you think so?
No.
No?
No.
Because she was too hateful?
I thought she'd probably be the last one, and it would still be a surprise death, but I
Yeah.
thought she was gone.
I thought it was going to be everybody dies. It was just a matter of how. I thought maybe if Mannix had gone with her offer, something like that, she would have just double-crossed him,
Anyway.
killed him, and then somehow Samuel Jackson would have killed
Gotten
her and
her,
then
yeah.
bled to death or something like that. But it was nice because it was a surprise that didn't happen.
I was happy that
Yeah.
everyone died, because that's like, yes, no heroes. Just
Does everyone
everyone
die in
dies.
Reservoir
Tragic.
Dogs? No, Mr. Pink escapes, right?
Can't remember.
Yeah, Mr. Pink-
Tim Roth gets
Tim Roth dies.
Does he die?
gets shot.
One person.
And Steve Buscemi lives. He runs out. He's the only one. He
Does
runs
he?
out with, I think, a gun or some of the money. He gets out. The guy who the whole time is like people are making fun of, and who doesn't shoot anybody. Mr. Pink
Really?
doesn't
I
kill
have to
anybody,
rewatch
so it's
that.
almost like his sin is forgiven. But Hateful Eight, everybody's a sinner.
Yeah.
Before they got there, while they got there.
Was Obi a sinner?
Yeah. Everybody. Well, he's not one of the 8.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
right?
You
Are
know.
we going there?
I like how they kind of
Star
pause
Wars.
for a moment and they're like, Obi, I liked Obi. Like, he didn't do anything
I
wrong.
did. I liked his accent. That guy's a good actor.
Called the door a whore. I think that was one of the funniest moments. Like collectively in the theater, I could tell that was like one of the jokes that really hit. It's like,
Yeah.
that door is a whore. It was great.
That guy is in the pilot. He's in the first scene of the pilot of Deadwood. He's the guy who's in the prison cell, trying to negotiate his way out of jail,
He gets hung on.
and gets hung on the front step of in the first scene of Deadwood. So I thought it was, and he has this great accent. And I'm sure Tarantino heard him in that one scene. It was like, I want that guy's accent.
Well, even if he never is in another movie again, he has bragging rights that he died of vomiting blood in a Quentin Tarantino.
This one's
movie.
really bothering you. You're not going to sleep well with this, are you?
I haven't been
Been
sleeping well.
reiterated,
It's,
So yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't one of the 8. Can we just examine?
What
Is
is
this
8?
Tarantino's 8th film?
He
It
says
keeps
is.
being marketing that way.
it sure feels like it.
Right?
I hope he doesn't get as into the 9 thing as he got into the 8.
Logan,
thing.
you want to count him off for us?
Oh, jeez. Just the ones he directed, or
Directed, yeah. I think
guess-
that's only fair.
So
Or
the first
written.
one was Jackie Brown. Is
Nope,
that it?
nope. Reservoir. Oh, you're the
Oh.
youngest guy on the panel. There's
I've
no way you
never,
can do this.
never
That
even
was-
seen Jackie
yeah,
Brown.
yeah,
was
okay,
4.
okay, okay,
I think
okay.
that was
Ah,
4.
that's
Reservoir
four. Oh,
Dogs,
jeez.
Dogs.
right? Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction,
Pulp
right? Jackie Brown,
3.
Brown.
right? Then we get
Dust
the
to
Kill
Dawn.
Bills. Kill
What about
Bills
Dust
1
to
and
Dawn?
2. Dust Till Dawn is directed by Robert Rodriguez.
I think
He's
he
just
only
in it.
co-wrote it.
Tarantino's just in it and sort of co-wrote it. I don't even think he's even credited.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. So 2 Kill Bills gets us to 5.
And Inglourious Bastards.
Inglourious Bastard 6.
Django.
Django.
And Hateful Eight. That would be 8.
Yeah.
Now,
And then he had the thing he did for Grindhouse.
4 rooms.
so
and
now we're
Grindhouse.
skipping. Yeah, we're skipping his chapter of 4 Rooms,
Yeah, exactly.
which was a
I
fun
liked.
chapter.
Yeah.
The bet, right, and
Yeah.
the finger, and that was a great chapter. And we're skipping his half of Grindhouse.
So
which-
anything he did with Rodriguez just gets like kicked to the side.
They have some strange agreement,
Because
apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Rodriguez did 4 Rooms too. He had a chapter in that.
Yes.
They're friends. They're pals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had the tango dancing chapter with the dead body under the bed. That was interesting. So
it's
this
8.
is it technically is 8 if you count Kill Bill as 2 movies. Now Tarantino has said that he will only do 10 movies, that he's going to retire after 10 films. So he's one of those directors that goes out on top, not not like
not
Terrence
just that.
Malick, who's just like slowly, slowly,
stop.
like.
Did you guys hear
cranking
what his
stuff
9th
out.
movie might be?
Wait,
I
wait,
read
wait.
something
Wow.
today that said he was really interested in doing a horror movie.
Yes.
Horror.
And it seems like he's been getting
Ah.
there.
Well, he's had.
with the
I mean,
amount of
there's
horror he had
there's
in this
horror
movie.
in this third act.
Explode
If you could say, being our scream queen,
Um,
Christina, what were some of the most obvious horror moments in Hateful Eight?
In the Hateful Eight, the chopping off of the arm was delicious. The shootout was too Western to me, so
Yeah.
I don't really call that horror.
Blood vomit.
Blood
Blood
vomit.
vomit.
Yeah, blood
Pretty
vomit
gory.
and the arm. I don't know. Those would be the two that
Having
I,
it stuck
that I
in
still
a house,
remember.
like Monster in the House, it's kind of with a monster under the floor, even though it's Channing
it's
Tatum. He's
still
not
who done it. It's not. It's not.
And
horror.
Channing Tatum's brains shower his sister in that, and that was like
Oh, that was bloody.
that was like, geez, like she should be
the-
pretty traumatized,
Yeah.
and
if she wasn't darn evil
super
to
evil.
begin with.
So if it's a monster in the house, is the act of bringing Daisy to the haberdashery, is that the act of sin?
ooh.
I mean, it's kind
I'm
of an
not
inverted
buying
monster in the house, but I mean,
no.
that's what you're bringing her into the situation, which turns out is loaded to get her back. So it's kind of, it's a weird sin because it's the hangman's belief in, if the bad man has to be hung or whatever, his
Right? Had he not just shot her,
Yeah.
this whole thing
This
could
would
have
have
been a
been
lot
nuts. Yeah.
simpler.
I don't know.
Which goes
it's
back
kinda-
to the line you mentioned about does it need to be a hard job, like, or whatever
does
he
it
said.
need to
so
be
that's
this hard?
yeah.
Which is a really great theme. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before
So excited
I don't
about
want
that.
Christina to get too excited.
So excited.
No, because I think the next project he's working on is something called Faster Pussycat Kill Kill about.
Oh, I
three-
love that.
Yeah, it's 3 rampaging strippers.
wow.
Is it-
And then they try to
that
steal
based
somebody's
off of
That
money.
sounds very.
Faster Pussycat is already it's a remake or
It's
is
something
a
he's working
versioning?
on now, so who knows?
That sounds
I mean,
very Natural Born Killers, which was like his script Oliver Stone directed, but that was like his version of Badlands. So,
Well,
but-
here's the thing: if he does stick to the 10 films, we can pretty much guarantee that number 10 will blow out all of his favorites, and you won't be able to get into that unless he loves and knows you, if that's his goodbye or his swan song. So right now, anyone has to do whatever they can to get on his team in the 9th.
are we placing bets on whether or not Channing Tatum makes the 10?
Shush!
I really hope
on.
not. I mean, like, unless there's a dance
Uma
off.
Thurman.
geez.
Wait, if they're in a strip club, maybe he's a dancer.
He could be a
He's
dancer.
good. That's good casting for him.
There you go,
I
the
don't
hype
think
man.
Tarantino is going to count both Kill Bills for his 10.
But he
You think?
has.
He said
this
this
has
is
to be
eight.
his
Those are
8th.
2 movies.
Like
He's called it his 8th.
The whole marketing is about this being his 8th. If he's like, that was actually the 7th, like later on, so he can make another movie. Like I think some people are gonna.
No, he literally
shot
said
himself
it.
in the foot
They
there,
had a
yeah.
round table for directors, the Hollywood Reporter, and he said, "I've got 2 more films in me."
Okay.
But he might just go to TV after that. Who
Well,
knows?
Jessica Lange said she wasn't going to do American Horror Story, and supposedly she's coming back.
well, an actor retiring is never the truth, unless it's in a rehab. So. But it's the same with directors. It's like running for president. You never get sick of it.
Did he make an appearance?
Where?
No, he didn't. And I thank you for that, Quentin, for not making an appearance.
Yeah.
It felt like in that he
I don't
other
like
than
when he
his
does
VO,
that. I
He
lo-
did not. And I think, one of the problems with Django was the fact that he wanted to make
Oh,
this.
he was in it. Yeah.
That third act got bisected because he wanted to have
A
Django put in a cage and escape the cage and come back when really the third act should have happened right after the first confrontation at the manor. But for some it was almost like Tarantino wanted to be in it because he has this cameo as like an Australian at some point.
Yeah,
Like
it was weird.
it was a
I
really
didn't buy
weird
it.
bisected third act.
Yeah.
So
Well, he's never been. The only appearance that I thought really worked well was Pulp Fiction when he's in the bathrobe. Like that. That's
that
like,
was great.
That was
that's
really
like, That's
good, yeah.
what I think of.
Uh-huh.
I liked him Dustle Dante.
He was Mr. Brown in Reservoir Dogs as well, and he gives the
TV
Madonna
stuff.
like a virgin monologue,
true.
right? So that is legendary. And yes, his
Was he in Jackie Brown?
his Dead N-word storage monologue also legendary,
And
right?
then there was his dripping penis in the Richard Rodriguez movie because remember he wasn't in his one, he was in the Richard Rodriguez one where they get the
Robert Rodriguez.
Robert
Okay,
Rodriguez, yeah, and they get the alien disease and
I didn't know that was Tarantino's penis.
it's,
I-
that's
I'm hoping that's a body
That's some
stunt
that's some
double.
inside info you got there. Jeremy with all the penis knowledge
It's
tonight.
Coming up.
All the penis knowledge tonight coming from this seat right
The
here.
Hateful Eight penises.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Let's
All right.
do final thoughts, final great moments, final favorites. I mean, now we've talked it through.
For sure.
Did any of your opinions change in some of this film? Who did we begin with tonight? We began with Christina. Yes, you're first.
My final thought is this, and I usually, for many films I sit up here and I talk about, I love it, and I envy the ability to have a budget to do what you really love, not what a studio wants you to do, but what you really love. And he epitomizes, what I love in that. From the get-go, he's always done what he loved. He did it. He made his name. You know his style. You know he's gonna. You know right off the bat he's a cult classic once it lands. Of course,
he's an original. He's as original as Wes Anderson.
Exactly.
He's someone who is an auteur in the traditional sense of it. I don't disagree with you. Everyone, and that's why we did this podcast at Adorama. Because we care about Tarantino as a filmmaker.
Agreed.
But the Emperor has no clothes on his editing, man.
No, but that,
what? One thing I'll say that tonight we went over and found at the beginning we were like the dialogue wasn't that great, but then we came up with a bunch of really great moments
that you love
of great dialogue that we did love. And you know what? Had he edited his film tighter, it would have felt like that was it. That those were that it was action packed with great dialogue, and we would have said this is another Tarantino classic. And this is the editing problem, is that it takes if you go too long, it takes drama away from your dramatic moments. It takes comedy away from your comedic moments.
It takes box office as well. When you have a
definitely
3-hour long
takes
movie,
box
that's just
office.
less showing.
Well,
you know
it takes
what?
box office in
I'm
terms
the
of
first
showings.
one that says I have no attention span, or I had no attention span. The first film I sat down to, and why I keep harping on this, was Seven Samurais, and it was kind of like you can just tell a story. You don't have to get it at the hour and a half point to keep your audience or to hit a box office. Yes, I actually said when I went to the screening, Kurt Russell said, you know what? There's so much film that he shot. He could have a comedy version of this. He could have a drama version. He could have a horror version, but this is what he chose. And I think it's like, give him
why
credit
2 hours and 40 minutes?
Why not? Maybe we should retrain people to actually sit down and take something in and not expect a payoff every 5 minutes.
The audience is there.
They need overtures. They need intermission.
Our audience knows how to consume story. Okay, we consume it in half-hour comedies or half-hour dramedies. We consume it in 1 hour dramas, or we consume it in 2 hour feature films.
Why can't we go over?
Because it's past the human.
And why do you accept it with some people? Like, do you have the same issue with Nolan? And almost every single one of his goes.
Every one of my podcasts, I say Emperor has no clothes when you go over 2 hours.
Well,
this is like my big thing.
There's no magic time limit for this. I mean, I don't want Lawrence of Arabia to be shorter. That was an appropriate it needed to be as big as it was.
It's about density. You're right. It's not about length. It's about density.
This movie did not need to be as long as it was. Yeah. I loved the just ridiculousness that we descend to in the end. I loved all the faux philosophy. I loved just how bloody and disgusting, and you're just laughing in the theater because it's so gross. So where it went, I was fine. It was kind of a long road getting there.
Yeah, I loved it. At times, I just wanted it. I wanted it tighter, and you definitely could have combined a couple of those characters. You could have kept 8, right?
It could have been the Hateful Seven, and he would be, closer on track, and he'd still have
and he wouldn't have to
movies.
retire so soon, right? Logan?
You're mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you partially changed my mind about the dialogue. I think we discussed a lot of good moments from the story, especially in the first half that I kind of thought were a bit dry and lacking in just tension and building to that second half. But like you said, it definitely could have been tighter. I don't think it needed to be close to 3 hours. I think it was more of a justification for the intermission and overture, and at least just the exhibition.
So, I mean, I'll say the same thing about Man of Steel. That movie had 40 minutes of action in the third act of the, Zod and Superman kicking each other's ass, and it was just boring because it was not original. It wasn't escalating. It wasn't new. It was the same. And you can make that same sin with dialogue. And Tarantino, who is, we know he's the master of it, and he can do it. And as a screenwriter, you know that your first draft of dialogue is always fatty, and you cut it. On your third draft, it's a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
When if you have a reading out loud, you can hear when it's not hitting. And there's moments in this film where you hear the dialogue is like, why are we listening to this? We're not building. But then when Sam Jackson gets to the blowjob monologue, we're with him the whole way, because that is
Whether we
dense,
wanna be or not.
tight dialogue. That is working.
There's heavy
for
conflict between him and the other character.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're butting heads. It's going from bad to worse
us.
throughout
The
that whole
tension
thing.
is rising. Yeah. Jeremy,
So-
did you have a last?
No, just I mean, I do love where it went in the end, and it's and I'm gonna remember that Lincoln letter reading scene. And just,
It seems like it seemed like such a poke in the eye to Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, like about how we're not taking Lincoln seriously, in this film.
he definitely.
point.
I mean, he hasn't taken history very seriously recently, and it's been a great run for him. I mean, I think Inglourious Bastards is just like a kind of revenge revisionist history genre.
And
shoot
Ja-
'em up genre was amazing.
And Django was even more of a revisionist version of slave plantations in the South. In fact, I thought the proper third act for Django would have been Django leading like a slave uprising and turning the manor into
I think we talked
base.
talked about that at the
Did you
proscript
guys?
discussion of that.
Yeah.
This is definitely not playing at anywhere near that level. I mean,
No.
this is kind of down. Well, it's penis jokes as major beats in the story. So,
And they stay in one room. We never get to Red Rock. There's no escalation to a third
love that.
final spot, which makes it more like a horror,
I
more
dig
like a whodunit.
More like a stage play.
But where did all that film go? What do you mean all these edits? There was a couple sweeping vistas, there was a bit of snow, and then we're in a room. So, but Tarantino brings it in the end.
Yep.
He brought it. I think it came out tonight in us. He brought it in the dialogue. It just wasn't as tight as we would have liked.
Some of us wouldn't have liked it.
Yeah, some of us. You wished it was 4 hours.
I could do it.
Okay.
I could do it. And you know what?
Intermissions? How about 2 intermissions?
No one's
Why not
okay.
2
So
intermissions?
how come no one's like getting mad at the long sweeping shots in the beginning? You could do that, but when
Because
someone
you have
talks,
attention span in the beginning.
no, it's beautiful, but it's just a long shot, and no one's like weeping over that.
But it's setting.
That's part of the overture as well.
Well,
The
the overture-
set is part of setup. It's part of setting the tension. It's part of setting up the world we're about to see. And so we'll
take that as long as-
No, we're a dry sponge in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We're soaking up every little piece of information to learn about this story
Sure.
world. But an hour and a half into it, we don't need any more. Our sponge is wet. It better be all, you better squeeze it out, squeeze the sponge out, and start over at the midpoint. I don't know. It's a ridiculous metaphor.
I was going to
I
see
loved
how
it,
far
Quentin.
you could take this.
I don't know where I was going with the metaphor. The
sounds like a
blowjob-
business book,
Can you do a blowjob
your
metaphor for us instead? It's like it's half erect in the beginning, half the midpoint. We're finally there.
Yeah, I don't know. Christina's kind of shaking her head at me. But
scenario.
Sponges and
No, the
blowjobs
blowjob analogy
and
is-
blood vomit. Oh my!
there would have to be a certain efficiency to a blowjob in a blizzard, and the movie kind of
Blowjob
lacked
in a
that
blizzard.
efficiency.
I don't know.
On that note, guys,
We'll close there.
Wow.
I was looking to get out of it.
You just set me
5
up.
minutes ago. I started.
I loved it.
I screwed up. I ended on sponges and blowjobs and blood vomit.
The two people who are
Blood
watching this are
vomit.
disgusted.
Yeah, they're all. But this is why we get the hits. This is why we get the big
Yay.
hits, guys. The script is produced by Jordan Rosengarten and David Negrin. Join our Facebook page by searching for NYC Screenwriters Collective. Follow us on Twitter @ScriptFeed. You can support the script at patreon.com/thescript. I want to thank my screenwriters tonight, Logan, Jeremy, and Christina. I want to thank Adorama, Chris Lee, and Jesus Gutierrez. Good night. Hi guys, this is David Negrin, host of the Script Podcast and executive director of the NYC Screenwriters Collective. I'm excited to announce that we've created a Patreon campaign for the Script. Patreon is like a Kickstarter, but it allows you to give ongoing pledges every month and receive ongoing rewards. Of course, the Script Podcast will continue to be free, but we're just asking for a little help. We release 4 or 5 podcasts a month, but we'd like to do more. We'd also like to improve our audio quality and release video podcasts with rich content. So here's how you can help. Become a patron of the Script Podcast and gain access to our VIP activity feed with premium content. There, you'll be able to communicate privately with myself and my co-hosts after every podcast. You can get a packet of original screenwriting guides written exclusively for members of the NYC Screenwriters Collective. You can receive our monthly tracking board preview podcast for Hollywood insider updates on big script sales and the hottest spec screenplays to hit the market. You can get access to full on-demand video of NYC Screenwriters Collective events, lectures, and panel discussions. At the highest patron levels, you can even request the film or TV series we analyze and come on the script yourself to analyze it. So please, check out all our rewards, join our inner circle. Become a patron of the Script Podcast at patreon.com/thescript.